Welcome to Tawana Talks, where I give my reflections on simple life experiences that lend themselves to life lessons.
Okay, so I am here with the lovely Jomaira Ortiz, and Jomaira and I have met each other about almost 2 years ago now. And we are in an e-group together, which is a ladies group that is kind of like a Bible study group that we have weekly, but it's now flourished into a sisterhood.
It is, yeah.
And so we kind of do life together, and so we really enjoy this space of doing life. But talking more about Jomaira's awesomeness, she is a mother of a beautiful, what is Erin, three now. She's a wife, and she also runs a nonprofit organization called Rooted Hearts Ministry. And so I do want to take a moment before we dive into some talking for Jomaira to talk a little bit about Rooted Hearts, but I also want to just reflect that the purpose of these podcasts are to be able to take daily life experiences and daily life things that happen and reflect it on what's the meaning behind it and kind of digging deeper. I think it's important that we take a moment to step back and say just the smallest things have some intentionality for our lives. And again, these are just for the one. And sometimes the just one is just me. And so if no one listens to this and I hear it, I know that it's purposeful. And so for those of you who are listening, you may be just one. So I appreciate that. But Jomaira, tell us a little bit about Rooted Hearts Ministry, and then we would just go into our regular conversations like we normally do.
I will, but my ADHD is kicking in.
Okay.
So this is real time. So I need to adjust myself. And I might do that a couple of times, so just don't
You're
get
fine.
distracted.
You're
Okay. So Rooted Hearts Ministries, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, but we serve families throughout the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico and God knows where else he's going to have us. And our main purpose is to serve families who have children that are on the autism spectrum and that are awaiting the start of services. The reason why that's a very specific population that we serve is because it's very personal for us. My son was diagnosed with autism at 21 months, and we realized very quickly that the wait list for services that are deemed medically necessary, speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA, things like that, the wait lists were like 12 months long at some point.
Wow.
And this wasn't a unique situation to us. So at the same time when we were going through this journey, starting this journey, I had lost my job and my career, and I started to kind of dig deep and like, this isn't unique to us, what can we do? And so I really feel like the Lord impressed in me to create a toolbox that we can send to families while they were in the waiting, to provide them with tools on things that they can be doing in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about what we do. There's so much more to it, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah. Tell us about Jomaira.
Okay.
It's
so weird to talk about yourself.
I know, because you're a mom and you're a fabulous mom. I mean,
Thank you.
as moms, we want the best for our children, and that means mentally, spiritually, physically, all of the things. And so it's powerful that you have a nonprofit that speaks to that. It's not for another reason. And most nonprofits have some sort of personal goal for it, but yours is even more personal because you live it every day.
Yeah.
And then you're a wife, and you and your husband do phenomenally together partnership in parenting and partnering, and then in building this nonprofit for not just Erin, but all of the other children like Erin. But who's Jomaira?
Jomaira is, first of all, a daughter of the Most High King. I am unapologetically all about Jesus. It wasn't always that way, but when I gave my life to Christ, 7 years, going on 8 years now, everything changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of me. I'm a wife, as you mentioned. My husband and I have been together now for 7 years, married. Going on 5 years married.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just think the greatest part about us is that we're partners. And I say that because I think it's important to understand, like, yes, you want to have the butterflies and all that, but what happens when you go through a pandemic?
Right, that part.
You know, the butterflies aren't gonna, you know, keep going when you're in literally each other's faces.
They're not flying in the house.
18 months. No. You know, so, yeah, so I'm a wife, I'm a mom, as you mentioned, to my incredibly smart, witty, curious 3-year-old. He makes our worlds turn round and round. He's, I feel blessed to be his mom, honestly. I thank God that he chose me to be his earthly parent. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I think I've done, ever since I was a little girl, I did the tea parties and I played sports and I did a little bit of everything. But I used to love to be able to make things or sell things so that I can buy things for the people that I love.
Aww.
Yeah, so like, you know those Scholastic book fairs?
Oh yeah. They don't do that anymore. Like, that was so, to be able to bring that little newspaper-like thing home, and you had that one little strip that you had to mark off, and I don't care if it was just one thing. Like, my mom, you know, we were poor, so she was like, you can get something for 99 cents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes. And you get, and then if you got something, you got the free thing with it, or you got the little
eraser or bookmark,
Babysitters Club series.
Yes, the monthly and the
best part though is when that box came to the classroom and you knew that it was like Amazon. That was like the olden day Amazon. Oh my gosh, yes.
So what I would do, so we had the monthly paper thing. But then I think once or twice a year they would come to our library, and the library would transform into a store.
Erasers and all of that. Yes. Oh my God.
So I would buy everything that was on clearance. So anything that was marked down for, and I'm talking about, I was like in first, second grade.
Wow.
And nobody put me up to this. I was just like, okay, if I buy the thing that's 50% off and I sell it for what the price.
Oh my God.
This is my
hustler.
Brain. I was a hustler from day one. And my mom used to work in a Chinese restaurant. We grew up in New York City, so it wasn't like a Puerto Rican working in a Chinese restaurant. We all we all sold together. And so I would set up shop on the little, like on the side.
You had a little bodega in front of them?
I did inside the restaurant. And I used to make my own little, with construction paper, my own like prices.
Price tag. Oh my God, that is funny.
And people would come in, they would see this cute little chubby girl, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm selling books. Would you like to buy? And I was selling at full price, girl. Yep.
Oh my God.
But then I knew nothing about saving. I had a little piggy bank, but my heart was always to give back, to give to people, like literally since I was little. So I would go to a little discount store and buy my mom some little fake roses or like clip-on earrings. I was always buying stuff for my mom.
That is crazy.
So, yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done anything from, I'm a licensed holistic health coach.
Okay.
I'm, once upon a time I was a licensed Zumba instructor, so I had my own Zumba teaching business going. I started with Rooted Hearts LLC, and that was a program for emotional and spiritual growth for women. Okay. And that was birthed during the pandemic as well. So I've done a little bit of everything, and then, you know, of course, current day where we have the nonprofit. I am an author. I have published a few articles in different magazines, and I have my own journal. Plug on Amazon.
When you the links for the article as well as the book will be in the description. If you're watching, look in the description for that, and if you're listening, it'll be in the description. So please go ahead and support that. Read that.
I'm a sister. I have 3 amazing brothers. I'm the princess. I'm also recently a titi, an auntie, to 2 beautiful little girls. One on the way, one who's already here. Yeah. And I mean, I also have a bunch of other nieces and nephews of my cousin's kids that call me titi, and I love them. And no, I love people. Like sometimes to a fault, but I just love people, and I love to be able, like I have an advocate's heart. I don't know if you've ever done like the Myers-Briggs or anything. So I'm the advocate. I'm the ENFJ.
Yeah.
That's my profile. I just have this strong sense of when there's an injustice. Like we all have tools. We can do something. What can we do? And that's really part of where Rooted Hearts came from. Was, God, I know this can't just be it. Like I can't just accept that this is it. What can I do with what I have?
Right.
And then that's where the sensory boxes came from and everything else basically.
That's good. I wanna talk about like the what can I do part, but before I do that, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that this if you're listening to this in the time that it was launched or presented out, it's fall, right? And so I think the most important question is, are you a pumpkin spice person?
I'm not. Okay, hold on. So.
Well, we got our fall on. I got my sweater on.
I do have my fall colors.
Fall color on.
Yes and no. So I will do like apple cider. Well, that's not pumpkin, but I'll do.
You do the fall flavors.
Stuff. Yes, like the donuts, the pumpkin donuts. I don't drink coffee anymore. That's a whole other story, but.
Well, shout outs to Help for drinking coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to pull her in or pull me out, but whatever.
No, it was for medical and spiritual reasons that I don't do that, but that's okay. I'll try pumpkin. Like I've done like pumpkin banana bread and.
Ooh.
It was actually good. No, it was actually good.
I just don't think I don't like bananas with anything except itself, because I think banana is the fruit bully. Because whenever seriously,
say more.
Like whenever you put banana next to something, it overpowers everything. So I don't do strawberry banana, I don't do banana, just banana, because then it takes over. And I'm like, God.
But so the pumpkin spice, so if you add the nutmeg and the cinnamon, like
you talking about like me cooking it or like when I
No, in general.
You know what that looks like.
It's a balance. So you gotta try it. It's good. I don't know. I like it.
So would you do your fall flavors? This is the real question. When do you start your fall flavors? October, or do you start it in September?
When it's available. I'll have a pumpkin donut in April.
I mean, because like they were advertising fall like September, and it was still 99 degrees outside.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, are you serious? And I told somebody, I'm like, I'm a fall baby. My birthday's in September. And so they're like, well,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
September
24th.
Oh my gosh, okay, I wrote it down.
So they're like, people are like, well, then you should be all into fall. Like, soon as September hits, you should be in the fall. I'm like, no, it's October 1st is when you start getting fall stuff.
So, okay, like, flavor-wise, I don't discriminate. But I'm more of like a salted caramel person.
Oh,
so like
yeah.
when I was drinking coffee, I was more salted caramel. But yeah, I don't discriminate. Like now, I will say this: the decor, I'm not like maybe mid-September. But what throws me off, I'm from New York City, so we're in hoodies by
July. But you know,
well, no, that's New York, that's so deep. No, but like mid-September, late September, whatever.
It's not mid-September. It's beginning September. Stop lying, but okay. It's cool.
I don't know, global warming.
We're from Buffalo, so we like from May, only little July, definitely June, August. By the end of August, we're wearing snow pants, but you know.
Yeah, no, it's still different for us downstate, but like I feel like to me that's when you get into like the joy of fall, of autumn. This North Carolina weather just throws me off. We don't, like I miss wearing my Uggs. I know that's more winter, but like we don't really get winters like that to wear Uggs.
I do appreciate the fact that here at least you can wear whatever you want. It doesn't, like when I first moved down there, I was like, oh, I went to the mall and I saw somebody with like, it was, I don't know what the weather was actually. I can't even remember because there was so many different, such a multiplicity of things. Like somebody had shorts and Uggs. Somebody had a hoodie. Somebody had a tank top and sweatpants. Like it was just a lot going on. So I was like, I was excited because I was like, oh, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
I'm good with doing whatever. I don't want to be stuck to what protocol says. If you're like, this is what has to be. Now, in some places like Buffalo, you can't do whatever. You got to do what the weather say, because other than that, it's just a bad problem. But I do like that, and I think that like in life, when you think about just living life, and kind of going back to what you were talking about, like you got to do something. And I think sometimes people don't do something because that's not the protocol. And I think especially with nonprofit organizations, they thrive on stepping out and doing something different. It's not the streamlined approach. And so it's kind of crazy that this fell into this, like here in North Carolina, we don't do the streamlined approach to what weather looks like or what we dress for the weather. You just wear what feels good. Like, it could be 90 degrees today. I got the sweater on, but it's going to be cold in the inside.
Right. Well, yeah, that, and it'll be 50 in the morning, and then it's 90 in the afternoon, and then you're just kind of like, what? So you just have to dress for. My thing is wear the layers, because you can peel it off. You can't peel on if you don't have them on. So, but you're right. Like with nonprofits, we're like, we step out of the box, and we don't. But I will say, like, it's interesting because nonprofits are still a business.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people hear the word nonprofit, so they assume that no, it's still a business. And so sometimes there is that pressure, or I can speak for myself, that especially with like social media marketing, that you have to keep your social media grid looking a certain way so you can attract certain donors and people. And I think that the more that we focus on that, the harder it is to focus on the why. And so for me, it's been Rooted Hearts turns 1 year old at the end of this month.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
So by the time you're listening to this, it will already be a year old.
Yeah, so September 30th is our anniversary. And it has been a journey of trying to figure out what should we be doing, and being very sensitive to what the Lord is calling us to do versus what society is expecting us to do.
So what's your, like when you say should, what's your guiding light or compass for the should?
I mean, God, number one, because this is an answered prayer, so I don't ever want to get away from what He's calling me to do. But also the people that we serve. So what is their need? And I think a lot of times we complicate things. I've worked in the nonprofit world pretty much my whole career. And I've come from really large nonprofits, and I've come from really small ones. And the common theme that I've seen is it always has to go back to the mission. And I've seen nonprofits where they kind of stray, or they stretch themselves too thin, and then they end up having to downsize or come right back to what the mission is. So like, should be like, who are you serving? Being very clear as to who your people are, and just focus on staying in your lane, so to say. Like, you can still think outside the box and be creative while still staying in your lane. There's enough out there for everybody, and there's plenty of need for everyone, to serve everyone. But what has God called, you or us to be able, like, what is God calling us to do in this season through the work that He's given us?
I think that's powerful, because you mentioned the why, and that's like something that's my guiding compass, like the why. And it's in everything, not like just in business, not in, operations, things like that, and just in life, like what's your why? And so one of the things, and like I'm always like, what's your goal? Like my brother laughs because he's like, you will cut somebody off mid-conversation and just be like, what's your goal? And I'm like, I just want to know, like, is your goal to argue? Because then I can respectfully decline. Are you looking for some input? Then I know how to guide this conversation. Or you just want me to listen? Like, what's your goal? And so thinking about the why, like, what's your goal? And so I think about that in parenting. Like, when we're doing things, like going back to that why. Like, for parenting, for me, is I want to be able to have a long-lasting relationship with my children, one that they are going to want to come home when they don't live here.
Right.
And so the way I parent my 8-year-old, I have adult children, I need to be parenting her as the 28-year-old.
That's right.
And so I think about the conversation we had prior to recording about today, all of the things, like in that moment, her hair wasn't the way that she wanted it to be. So it was like, it's the most important thing for her now. Wasn't the most important thing for me. It was the most important thing for me was her getting on the bus on time and going to school,
right.
because there were other things that, for the day to come. But then how I operated myself, and I'm transparent, did I operate myself in the best at that moment? Probably not. Am I reflecting on it now? Yeah, so that I can do it better next time? Of course. But thinking about the why is, I want to be able to have a relationship with her. It wasn't that why right then, because it's not the big why. Like, why do I need you to just love your hair and because I need you to go to school? No. I need to know how I need to operate myself because of the future, the big picture why.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important just when we're doing things in life, like, what's our goal? What's your goal here? And thinking about, like, the goal does not mean that immediate thing, step to step, the processes. That's not the goal. Those are steps to the goal.
Right.
But I think, like you said, sometimes we get so caught in the minutia of things that we forget about the real why. Like, your right now focus is this, but that's a step to the big goal.
Yeah, and it's a question that constantly evolves. And I think that's the beauty of nonprofits. So just business in general is that if you're not evolving, something's off. And evolution doesn't have to happen in a certain time frame. It doesn't have to happen in a really big way. It can be little things. And to be honest, in my experience, the little things is really what leads to the big things, the big transformation. And that, even in us being operational for a year, we've evolved in so many different ways, and we've had to be like, okay, let's bring it back, let's scale it back. As I mentioned, like, I've always had a giving heart, and I see all these opportunities, and I'm like, oh, we can do this because. But at the end of the day, what has God called us to do? Right. I mean, I go back to thinking about Jesus and his ministry. Jesus preached in a 3-mile radius. He didn't preach to everyone. He wasn't called, and this is Jesus, right? Savior of the world. Even he, in his 3 years of ministry, didn't preach to everyone. And so I'm me, you, my organization, we're not called to everyone. Right. But who are we called to? And how can we serve them the best that we can? Yeah. We're so proud and we're so grateful of the fact that we're ending this fiscal year, this first year of operation, in serving over 1,500 families, children and their families, from children at local CMS, Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. That's awesome. Children around the country, 48 states have received our boxes. Puerto Rico, Canada, as I mentioned, we've received requests from countries around the world. Like, those numbers are great, and we're so proud of that, and we're so grateful for just how it's exploded and how clearly we were onto something. Yeah. Like, we weren't just kind of shooting in the dark. Like, there's a need. Yeah. But the conversations that are happening for me internally, but also within our team internally, is, okay, we superseded our goal way before we thought that we would do it. What would it look like if maybe we scaled back? Or what would look like a scale back? And maybe we intentionally serve, 250 families. But for those 250, we put all the resources that we were able to put for 1,500 towards those 250.
They're not spreading thin, right?
Right. How transformative could that be for those 250? Because it's never just 250. Right. It's that child, the family around them. It's the ecosystem, right? Yeah. And then could we reach maybe their faith organization around them, their church, or whoever it is that they go to, their teachers, their local law enforcement. Like, how big could this be? And I think that's a lesson.
Starting with that just one.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a lesson. A lot of times, we our society craves more and more people, more followers, more all these things, but it's like there's so much that can be done with just one. You think about how intentional Jesus was to meet the Samaritan woman. He went out of his way. They took a road less traveled to meet that Samaritan woman, and she's known as the first evangelist, right, of Christianity. We think about how God met Paul on the road to Damascus. He went out of his way, even though Saul at the time was persecuting Christians. He went out of his way, and look at how that one seed was able to explode, and he was so pivotal to the expansion of Christianity, right? So, it's funny because when you asked me before who's Jomaira, I was like, oh, I didn't mention I actually have a master's in social work, right? That's kind of important. And my degree is a little different because social work, usually people hear social work and they think about that one-on-one clinical. That wasn't the track I took. Although I've done it and I could do it. I took the it's called like macro social work, where I was really looking at community organizing, planning and development. So how can I affect change here that's going to affect the masses?
Right. It's going to ripple.
Yes, exactly, the ripple effect. And so that's just like when I look at themes of my life, like a lot of what I've always done is how can I truly love on this person or show them that God loves them through the work that I'm doing, and how much more would that be effective for the people around them and their children and all that. So that's a conversation that's being had right now. Like I said, internally as an organization, is just what's next for us. And it might not be like that forever. Maybe this is just a season for us to be like, let's really love on X amount of families and people and churches and whoever it is, until we have until until we have a very generous donor.
It's like, it's do the thing. You'll have what you need when you need it. Do the thing right in front of you until the next. It's the Kaizen approach. So it's like the little bit counts. Do the thing, that thing, get that thing. And some trainings that I've done in building my organization, it was looking at the trainer kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of piggybacked off of Jay-Z 99 Problems. And so it was like 99 problems, pick one.
Right.
There are a whole host of problems, but pick one, because it's impossible. I worked for an organization where I was responsible for all 99 problems, and that's just, it's not sustainable, it's not feasible, it's unrealistic. And so being able to scale back, and sometimes I think that we look at the term scale back, or people hear that and think negative, like scale back, like get in your lane, hold your horses, slow your roll. Like, that's not what that means. That's really being able to step back and now take a look at the big picture and say, all right, that's not my space, because I don't want to show up not well in a space just trying to do the right thing. I went through Leadership Charlotte, and one of the major things that they do that I don't know, it may have been their intentionality, but one thing that I got out of it, they expose you to different spaces around Charlotte. So justice, government, education, all of the things, so that you can be able to see the 99 problems, but pick one. And so, because you don't want to be in a space just to take space. You want to be in a space where you are able to serve that space and leave it better than what you entered it, or add to, the growth and development of areas. I think that's great. And even our children's lives, like, they're not our children for the long haul, And so being able to show up well in that space and intentionalize your services for them, I think that, 99 problems.
And you said something earlier about how you parent your kids. You parent the 8-year-old, but you're also thinking about the 28-year-old. That's something that I personally also think about, especially when it comes
We've talked about that before.
When it comes to serving my son, and thinking about him not just as the 3-year-old, but thinking about how society is going to receive him as the 13-year-old, as the 23-year-old. My eyes are getting misty right now.
All right. Sip some drink.
Whenever I think about my son, it just gets, I mean, that's just to show like how much I love him, you know. And,
no, for sure.
But raising a child of color in this world that is deemed different, and you know, right now he's considered nonverbal. I like to think of him as pre-verbal, but he has other means of communication. But it's still different, right? It's different than the social norms that we have. What is life going to be like him? And so, you know, I know Matthew 6 says, you know, don't worry about tomorrow. You know, you have enough problems today. Like, don't worry about that. God is in control, essentially. But I'm also human, and I can't help to think about the decisions that I make today. How is that going to impact him when he shows up in the world as a 13-year-old? You know, my son's a big 3-year-old, right? Is he going to be 6 foot tall at 13?
Mine was.
And I've seen it. It's possible, and it's probably likely.
He was 5 something, but
tall.
6'2" now.
Yeah, not looking like a typical 13-year-old, or even when he is 23, 33. Like, how is the world going to receive him, and how is he going to be able to show up? And obviously, like, yes, he's 3, and so I have to be mindful to teach to his understanding today. But I think what this journey of just, 1, parenting, and 2, parenting a child with a disability is understanding who he is, and how can I lean into his strengths to be able to bring the best out of him, build that confidence in him, and in that then also kind of teach him about the world around him. Because one of the things about many autistic children is that, gosh, they're sweet as pie. Like, they probably have never done a bad thing to any single person, yet they receive so much negativity, right? And how do I teach him to process all that? How do I teach him that it feels very personal, but it's likely not personal? You know, there's some kind of brokenness in those people, and to still be able to move about in the world, knowing that God still has a purpose for you. You know, and that's heavy stuff, right? I don't have all the answers. Again, I've only been in this 3 years.
right.
I don't know much. But these are the things that I grapple with, right? How am I going to be able to teach him? But at the end of the day, like, I know deep down, when that time comes, God is going to show us. God is going to prepare my husband and I to be able to grapple with those things. But yeah, like, even just education. Like, I know my son, and granted, he will likely change, and he's going to grow, and he's going to mature in different ways. But he likely will not be his best self in a traditional education setting. So what does that look like, right? Like, how do we shape our lives? How do we, you know, do I homeschool him? You know, what are the other options out there? Because at the end of the day, like, knowing your child and being able to set them up for success, regardless of what their abilities is so important.
I've said this before, you've heard me say this, just being an educator, and in the space of education, counseling, teaching, administration, all of the things, that and even, not even more so, but especially as we have come through the pandemic. I mean, and when I say through the pandemic, I mean like the remote learning, the exclusion of surrounding of people and things of that nature, and being secluded. That's evolution. Environments require evolution, and so that environmental change has required biological evolutions, because your brain started to process and evolve differently. The way we interact, even being able to do social media such the way that we do it now, meetings, those types of things, spaces, all of those things have happened. But it is my willing, not the strong words, my desire, my prayer, any little small thing that I could do to help the understanding with conforming the environment to the people in it and not the people to the environment, more so when we talk about education. Yeah. And so, yeah, the way I learned, and then some people will say things like, you turned out well, you're successful. Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. But I learned when there wasn't computers. I learned when there was only chalkboard. I hate chalkboards, but those type of ways, but things evolved. And so the learning position is no longer, it's not learning position for everyone. Right. We have to be able to say, okay, that changed, and it's going to change for this, and it's going to change for that. I was laughing thinking about computers. My daughter and I were doing a morning devotion, and it said, what is something that you wished to God for? You know, something crazy. And I remember I had to be like maybe 9, 10, and growing up in the projects. And I remember closing my door really tight, sitting outside the door and praying hard. Like, God, please, that's my heart prayer. Like I was a magician for a computer. And then I open the door and I'm like, okay, it's not there. And I would go out. And I didn't walk away like, oh, God. I was just doing it again. I'm like, okay, just got to keep praying. Got to pray harder. Got to pray harder for a computer. And like, open the door. And I, it's not there. And I laughed with my daughter because I'm like, you know, my first laptop that I bought, my son was 1, and so that was 23 years ago. He's 24 now, and that was a Dell laptop. It was like this thick.
Dell. That was my first laptop.
I got my credit and everything. I was 20 years old. I got my credit. I got my little laptop. Yeah. I was excited about that thing, but that and so that speaks to the evolution. And being the mention that the laptop was this big, now you can get them this small. Now I'm having an iPad. If phone is a computer, those types of things, all of those things have evolved. So why do we not think that the spaces that we provide learning for people in general doesn't need to evolve? Yeah. Like that's important.
So I'm going to turn the interview over to you now. Oh,
jeez. How the tables have turned.
Because this is something I grapple with just, like I said, I have, my career has been a nonprofit, but I was an educator as well within the nonprofit space. And I taught mostly adults, but also young adults, and I got to see the differences in learning and how it's changed and how the spaces, like, there is going to be a reckoning in the education system. Like, it's already here.
Happening, yeah.
And
I mean, the shaking up right now is the lack of teachers.
Right.
At what point are you going to be like, oh, we can't teach without teachers?
Right. And the special education space is feeling it especially.
Yeah, they're offering high level bonuses just for special education.
Yep, I've seen that. And so I guess, you know, my question that I've been grappling with, just thinking about, again, as I'm getting ready to potentially prepare my son for kindergarten, where does it, like, what can we do as civilians or as parents or whatever it is, community members, like, to encourage or to see to it that this doesn't become a complete, like, it doesn't just fall apart and then we're having to be more reactive. Like, how can we be proactive? Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And it's funny that you said that, because my point that I was going to make to you when you talked about thinking about parenting your child as the 18-year-old, as the 20-year-old, as the, you know, some of that also comes with how you behave in spaces that do not directly involve your child, but will indirectly involve your child. And so thinking about the relationship component between you and your husband, thinking about the relationships that you have with others, thinking about relationships that you build in the community, and recognizing that, again, that as an approach, like the little thing, although we don't see, so I was reading Atomic Habits, although we don't see the incremental things that we're doing, how massive and macro those things are, they do. And so when we think about the littlest things, that we look at them to be little, that we do with our children and how we show up amongst other people, that's what happens. So I think about just something so silly, again, this intentionality of things like, this is not directly, but it's just kind of giving a point, like when you go to the grocery store and you have your cart and everything, and then you go to the car and you like, well, I walked all through the grocery store, but taking these 2 steps to put the cart back is too much. and sometimes, you know, and I've done it. I'm not even gonna say I'm not guilty. Like I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it over here.
Right.
I don't feel like walking all the way over there. But if you take a step back, scale back for a moment, and think about, is there potentially someone in this parking lot that could see me later? Mm-hmm. That would be a person that would be involved in my child's life or my life for the betterment. How would I behave if I knew they saw me?
Yeah.
Maybe I should put this cart back because I never know who's looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
I never know when that will show up well. I think about that too when I am in spaces and I'm frustrated with my child because of a behavior aspect or just the day. I think about the integrous approach, like how do I need to show up for her in this moment that's going to affect her, but who else sees that could be in relationship with her? So if I'm yelling at her and someone else sees that and she goes to school, that's the way mom treats her, so we'll yell too.
Right. I'm so glad you said that, because even with our son at home, and this is something my husband and I, and we're not perfect, you know, this whole gentle parenting approach, we do our best.
You know,
but
how you gentle parent kids when the kids ain't gentle behaving, but you know, that's what I'm just saying.
Right. Because these, let me tell you, these pandemic toddlers,
I've said it before. You will hear it on another talk where I've said, just when you said your kid is never, and that's when they show up never in the never way that they never before.
Yes, it is. They are straight savage. I mean, they're great, but they are savage. But, you know, I try to be as mindful as possible on how I treat my son, because especially in our situation where he can't necessarily tell me if someone mistreats him, I want him to be able to tell the difference. If I rough him up, or if I speak to him in a certain way when he's doing something that I'm not happy about, then he might be able to like internalize that as like, oh, this is what people who love me do. Right. This is what people who care for me do. Right. And so then he'll bring that to school. If God forbid something does like that happens to him in the community, then he'll think that this is okay. Yeah. And I have to be like, I think parents of children who have any kind of issue with communicating, whether it's just emotionally or physically, we have to be even extra intentional about that, because it starts at home. You're right. It starts with the relationships at home, building that trust, and even what our kids are seeing.
Yeah. Like, and we forget sometimes that perception is reality. One, children conduct their behavior. They learn it based on what they see others do in schools, at home, friends. We put them in friend spaces so they can understand how to interact with their peers and things of that nature. So they behave based on what they see, and their perception is their reality sometimes as well. And so what they see and they perceive it to be, then they will behave in that way. And this is by no means saying like you have to operate perfect, but I do believe that you should operate with reflection.
Right.
And so that's the important component of it.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, modeling the behavior as to what you would hope that your child would accept or respond to or whatever it is. That's good. Because, you know, I just, again, seeing what's happening, and I do have the privilege of knowing educators, so I kind of see it from the parent perspective, the community member perspective, but also from the admin side of things. Yeah. Of just how bad it is right now, you know, and it's just sad to me. I grew up in the public school system in New York City. I was blessed to have gone to schools that maybe they weren't the most resourced, but I turned out okay. Yeah. By the grace of God, we made it through, and I was in honor classes. I think that had a lot to do with it. That I just was able to make it into those classes. So the social capital was different there, right? I got to meet friends that were probably from more well-off families. Like the fact that a lot of the people, especially in my high school years that I went to school with, their parents were doctors and lawyers and civil servants and all these things, that they still trusted their kids going into public school clearly the schools were good enough, right?
Yeah.
Versus when you think about nowadays, it's like, even just, you know, kind of everyday people are like, my kid is going to a charter school or private school.
Right.
We're not going to.
And I think one of the biggest things too is, again, the access, the social media access. So now social media has opened up for you to see everything, and then also perception.
Yeah.
Your perception is reality. So what you see on social media, you perceive that to be the reality until you. It's like, I had an opportunity to visit a high school here in Charlotte that I had never visited before. I had a notion of what public schools were because of what I worked and then things I saw and things I heard, but I never saw it for myself. And I went and I was floored at the fact that I was like, this is amazing. Like, you know, but I would have never been in that space to know that it was amazing. And so, yes, there are multiplicity of choices and reasons why you should choose certain schools, but investigating that. And of course, I've worked in both. But that's going to be the investigation. So someone's experience may be like, this is not great because it didn't work for my kid, or it didn't work for this, or their overarching vision, theme, operation doesn't work for me. Doesn't mean it's a bad place. It just is not the right one for you. So going back to what we said about like operations, organizations, nonprofit operating in that space and doing the thing, being intentional for the thing that you're doing, we have to understand that there's differentiation of people, not just of learning. And so that space, if someone comes and says, I wouldn't send my kid there, they're no good. Okay, what made them not good for you? And now I'm going to go see, and then I can say, okay, well, those same things aren't good for me, or actually what they're doing does work for me, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, this has been phenomenal. I really, really appreciate this time. I always love talking to you because you've opened my brain up to so many different things, especially like neurodivergence, and took me down that path of understanding that a little bit better and helping me to understand my own daughter, who I've had the pleasure of being her mom for 8 less years. So it's been, and more to come. But I really appreciate your knowledge, your wisdom, your biblical perspective, your heart. Is there anything that you want to leave us off with for maybe just the one?
Whatever it is that keeps you up at night that you can't go a day without thinking about, lean into that. Whether it's a desire of your heart or maybe a person that you think, lean into that. Lean into the why, and keep asking questions. I think that's where we get to really, that's where the evolution comes in, is when we ask questions, we find out the root cause of why I'm thinking about this, why, you know, and there's a purpose behind that.
Yeah.
So that's what I got.